Hello, good morning friends. Welcome back to your favorite channel Code1 Digest. Today in this tutorial we will learn the Nodejs GraphQL Hello World API. Yes friend, in this project I'll show you how to write a GraphQL API to return a hello world in a Node.js. The very basic, very simple project where we'll be learning the basics of GraphQL and then we'll be running and testing our application. Yes, friends. So in this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how can you write a GraphQL API in a Node.js framework, right, friends? So stay tuned and watch this tutorial till end. It is going to be very, very exciting and informative tutorial, right, friends?
There's no agenda here.
So here is the agenda of this tutorial. I'll give you introduction of Node.js GraphQL Hello World project. I'll show you the setup in Visual Studio Code. Then I'll show you the requisite for this project, what all software required for this project and for this demo. We'll understand the packages like Express, Body-parser, CORS, GraphQL, GraphiQL, and Apollo Server. So what all these modules are, why we need it. So we'll understand that. Then I'll show you the coding of Schema resolver in server.js file. I'll also show you coding for the routes in the server.js file. Finally, we'll be running our server.js file and we'll be testing our GraphQL API in our GraphiQL tool. I'll explain you in coming slides what is GraphiQL tool. Right, friends? So, friend, here is a prerequisite for this demo. If you don't have the software, please go and install the software. So you need Node.js when you go for dependency installation, like when we say in npm install. So we'll be installing this particular version of this module, like Apollo Server 1.4.0, Body Parser 1.18.3, CORS 2.8.4, Express 4.16.3, GraphQL 0.13.2, GraphQL tool 3.1.1. If you install the latest version, then the code what I am showing you may not work because different versions of these libraries may have a different functions and methods. So good to stick to this version so that you are able to work smoothly with this demo. Right, friends? Friends, before we proceed in this video, I request you to subscribe this channel to grow Code1 Digest family. Friends, I am creating a lot of quality videos on programming, coding concepts, design pattern and design principles, cloud and container technologies, but I'm not getting subscribers. I request you to like, share and subscribe this channel so that I can grow our Code1 Digest family. Thank you.
All right, let's get started.
Okay, friends, so now let's start with the coding of Node.js GraphQL Hello World project, right? So, friends, I have created this directory Node.js GraphQL Hello World project. So, this is the place where all my files, Node.js project files, will be residing here. So, what I'll do is the very first thing what I'll do is I'll create a package.json. Let me create a package.json here for you. Package.json, right? So, let's create that. Yeah. So let me add few entries in package.json, my project name and all of that, right? Node.js, right? This is done. Then next is private true. As this is going to be used only internally, so I'm keeping this private, okay? But this is not mandatory, right? So this is my package.json. Now what I'll do is I'll install few dependencies, right? Let me open a command at this location, right? And now I'll be installing the Express and Body Parser module here. So let me do that. npm install Express Body Parser and CORS. Right, friends? Let me do that. So Body Parser is the middleware package which help Express to handle the HTTP post requests efficiently. And CORS is another middleware package that helps cross-origin resource sharing. Right, friends? And Express, you know, right? We use Express to create microservices or any web application. For that, for HTTP support, we would need Express module. So hence we are installing all these dependencies. Let us do that. And then we'll see that our package.json is updated or not. Let us go back and see. Now this is my package.json. Yeah, so it has body parser 1.20.2, CORS 2.8.5, and Express 4.18.2, right? So this got added. Now what we'll do is we'll create our server.js file. Let me do that. Before that, let me open this now in our Visual Studio Code so that we can manage the code efficiently. We can write the code efficiently. Now let me do that. I'm opening the Visual Studio Code. Open folder, and that is okay. Open this folder. I have pasted the folder. So now, yeah, you see, so it has opened that project and it has node module with all the dependencies. Let me delete unwanted backup files so that to avoid any confusions, right? Now we have this. What we'll do is now we'll create one our server.js file, right? And we write some code here. So let me start with server.js file and we'll add some code here. Constant body parser is equals to wire body parser. So we'll say body hyphen parser, right? Constant CORS is equals to require CORS. Then constant express is equals to require express. Constant port is equals to process.env.port in case if we set up that in our environment variable, otherwise I'll run it on 9000, right? Constant app is equals to express, so it will give me an instance of app, right? So this is done. Then we'll say app.use body parser dot json and cors, right? And then we'll say app dot listen on port that we have defined above, and we'll say we'll print a message console.log server is up and running at $port, right? So this is done. Now we have written this server.js. We will quickly test this if there is any problem in this file. So let us do that. We'll open a command prompt. We already have a command prompt open. We'll do node server.js. Yeah, the server is up and running. Let me try to hit that in a browser and localhost 9000. Let's see what happens. Yeah. Okay. So now we are getting this response. That means the server is up and running and it is working fine. Now we'll move to the next step. That is we'll add some GraphQL dependencies. So our basic setup is ready. Basic server is ready. Our microservice, our web application is ready using Express module and body parser module. Now what we'll do is we'll add some GraphQL dependencies. So let me do that. Let me go back to my Visual Studio Code and we'll open the package.json. Let me stop the server and install few modules like npm install GraphQL, GraphQL hyphen tools and Polo server hyphen express at one. Yeah. So you don't worry, I'll share all these commands so that you can directly paste it and install the dependencies. So I'm installing GraphQL, then GraphQL hyphen tools, then I'm installing Apollo server express at one. Why we need Apollo server? Apollo server is a very popular implementation of GraphQL specifications in Nodejs in for the JavaScript framework for JavaScript languages. That is why we use Apollo server, and this Apollo server supports most of the JavaScript frameworks that we have in the market. So let me install this first. Let us see what happens. So it is downloading, and we'll see that our package.json will get updated after this. So we have now Apollo server, then we have body parser, then we have CORS, then we have Express, we have GraphQL, and we have GraphQL tool, right? So all these dependencies got added now. Okay, friends, as we have installed all the dependencies now, let us see the package.json one more time and the version. So you have to use Apollo server Express 1.4.0, then use Body-parser 1.18.3, CORS 2.8.4, Express 4.16.3, GraphQL 0.13.2, and GraphQL-tools 3.1.1. Remember, this particular demo will work only with this version. If you go for the latest version, may not work, and you have to write the code accordingly. So if you want to work with this demo, go for this version only, just to avoid any problem during the demo. Right, friends? So use this version to avoid any hiccups later. Okay. Now next step, what we'll do is we'll add more code in our server.js file. Okay. So GraphQL schema defines what kind of objects can be fetched. So now in next step, what we'll do is we'll define the schema, because GraphQL schema is the core of your GraphQL APIs. So your GraphQL schema tells what information you're going to share with your client, right? So GraphQL schema defines what kind of object can be fetched from a service, hence what field it has, right? The schema can be defined using GraphQL schema definition language. Okay, so we'll add few lines of code in our server.js file, right? Let me do that. Constant type definition and is equals to type query bracket, and then we'll say greeting, that is a string, right? So we have to give the name of the attribute, that is greeting, and type of the data type of that attribute. What is the data type of that attribute? So this is our schema. So in this format we'll be querying the or calling the GraphQL APIs. Now what we'll do is the next step will be creating a resolver. Resolver is required to convert the query into data. So when the query come, based on the query, it resolves the query and it fetches the data from the backend system. In our scenario, it will be just a string that we are returning. So the first step is to create a resolver and is to add some code to process the request for the greeting field. The structure of the resolver function must match a schema that we have added, right? So let us do that. Constant resolver object is equals to bracket and then query colon bracket greeting, and we are saying line function hello GraphQL from code1 digest, right? With me, friends? So this is done. So we have written the schema, how client can fetch the data from this GraphQL API. And second, we have written the resolver, how the query will get resolved and how do we fetch the data for that query. So these two are done. Okay, so now next step is we have to bind this type definition with this resolver object. So we'll write some code to bind these two things, right? Now the second step is to bind this schema and the resolver using make executable schema. Okay, this function is predefined in the GraphQL tools module. So let us add the code to do that. Constant and then bracket make executable schema is equals to require GraphQL tools, right? This is done. Then constant schema is equals to make executable schema bracket curly bracket, then type def colon type definition, and resolvers colon resolver object. So this will paste it here. So this mapping we have done between the schema and resolver object, right, friends? These are done. Now next step is to create some routes using express module. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll create some routes. We'll say constant GraphQL express GraphQL express is equals to require Apollo server. Now what we'll do is we'll create a route. So app.use bracket slash GraphQL. So we will hit these endpoints to get a response for the greeting. We'll say we can give any endpoint, but I'm giving GraphQL, and on that GraphQL express schema. We are passing the schema there. Okay. Now next endpoint is app.use slash GraphQL, then GraphQL express bracket, then curly bracket, endpoint URL is equal to slash GraphQL. Right, friends? Done. So these are the two endpoints we have defined. So the GraphQL Express function helps to register the route slash GraphQL. Similarly, the GraphQL Express function help to register the route slash GraphQL. This will be used by the GraphQL browser client to test the API. Right, friends? Okay, let us walk through the code again, the complete code again one more time. So we have a body parser, we have imported the body parser, then we have imported the CORS, then we have imported the express, and then we have defined the port that where we want to run our application on 9000. Then I'm creating an app using express module. Once that is done, in the app I'm providing the body parser.json and CORS. Once this is done, then this is where I'm defining my schema. Okay, constant type definition, and then you have to use the single quotes and write this type query in between these two single quotes. Then we are defining a resolver object here. For the greeting attributes that we have defined above in a schema, we are having this value, this string as a value. We have to bind schema this schema with this resolver. Hence, we are using the Mac executable schema. Using this Mac executable schema, we are binding the schema and resolver here. We are importing the Apollo server and using the GraphQL Express and GraphQL Express constant. Here we are defining the routes. So one is GraphQL endpoint where we are calling GraphQL Express by passing the schema that we have created above. This is the schema. And we are defining another endpoint at GraphiQL to open the GraphiQL testing tool, right? So the endpoint is GraphiQL. Now what I'll do is I'll start the server and see if the server is coming up, and then I'll show you. I'll open the application in the browser and see if we are able to access that. Let me do that. Okay friends, so now I open a console and now let me start my server. Yes, so it says our server is up and running now on port 9000 that is successfully started, and it has started with all the required modules, GraphQL modules, GraphiQL tools, and so on. So now what I'll do is I'll open a browser and try to open a GraphiQL tool where will we fire the query. Right, friends? Okay, let me do that. So now I have opened the browser. Now what I'll do is I'll append the GraphQL endpoint and hit it. Yeah, so we see that GraphiQL tool has opened up. So we have this query text box on your left hand side, and right hand side is the response. As per the schema, we have to request the greeting. So let me put a query here. Now put a curly bracket and put greeting, right? Now let me try and hit it. So this is a greeting, and now if you see the response here, hello GraphQL from Nodejs, right friend? So we are getting the hello world response from GraphQL. Clear? Friends, if you want to learn Node.js, if you want to learn GraphQL, if you want to learn Apollo server, if you want to learn GraphQL schema, if you want to learn GraphQL resolver, so this is a video for you where we are learning how to write a hello world program in GraphQL in Node.js using Apollo server. Right, friends? I'll be creating more and more videos on GraphQL. So keep liking and keep watching Code One Digest channel. And if you're new to the channel, so don't forget to subscribe to this channel to get latest video updates. Okay.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Okay, friends. So as we have completed the testing of our application and it is working fine. So you need not to worry about the code. The code I have uploaded in my GitHub repository. You can download the code from my Code One Digest repository. And this is a project name, Node.js GraphQL Hello World project. You can just clone it from this URL and you can directly run this application in your local. You can modify the code in your local and you can change the code accordingly as per your requirement, right friends? So all the code and all the commands are provided in this repository. You can just download and start using it, start playing it, right friends?
What? I do not understand.
Okay friends, so now let me summarize what we learned in this tutorial today. I gave you introduction of Node.js GraphQL Hello World project. Then we understood what all the prerequisite for this tutorial, for this demo, what all the versions required, what all the dependency versions required, what is the node version required, and so on. We have seen that. Then I explained you the packages like Express, Body-parser, CORS, GraphQL, GraphiQL, and Apollo server module, what all this module used for. Then I shown you the coding for the schema resolver in server.js file. I also explain you the creation of routes, GraphQL routes in server.js file. How do you write GraphQL routes, right? Then finally we run the application and we tested the GraphQL API by hitting the GraphQL endpoint in our graphql tool, and we successfully got a response. Right, friends? So if you like this tutorial, so give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, so do subscribe to my channel to grow Code One Digest family. Right, friends?
Wow, that's amazing.
Friends, if you like this video, so give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel for the more interesting videos. Click on the bell icon for the latest video notifications, and do not forget to share this video with all your friends and colleagues. This is very useful information for students, beginners, and software engineers. I am putting a lot of efforts in creating these contents, so please help me growing the Code One Digest family. Please subscribe to Code One Digest channel for the latest programming and technology related videos. Thank you.